Hello, I'm Mike Goudsward. I think of myself as a learning Imagineer, and I have the pleasure of working with our MOOC teams in building these great courses. I also have the pleasure of introducing our first three speakers. So the way this is going to work is we'll have three speakers, and then we'll have a Q&A where we'll have the first three join us on stage, and we'll have a short break. One note about this space, there are restrooms out either door, so they're close by either door you go. All right, so our first speaker is Jennifer Brice, giving us the talk, Building Community, One Book at a Time, Living Writers on ColgateX. Jennifer Brice is an associate professor of English at Colgate University. She is the author of two books, The Last Settlers and Unlearning to Fly. Her essays have been published in American Nature Writing, The Dolphin Reader, Plowshares, River Teeth, Under the Sun, and the Gettysburg Review, among others. Brice teaches creative nonfiction writing, including science and nature writing, travel writing, and literary journalism. Since 2010, she and her colleague, Professor Jane Pynchon, have been experimenting with online technology to include alumni and parents in their Living Writers course. Last fall, they used the edX Edge platform for the first time.
Thank you for that, Mike. Thank you all very much for coming. This will be the first time I've ever talked about technology as opposed to literature or writing, so this will be fun. And thank you also, Jed, very much for extending this invitation, which was also an invitation to think in a much more systematic, reflective way during a hiatus year about what it is that I do. Thank you. I'm going to offer a very brief, lightning-fast sort of history and description of this course that I co-teach. I'm caught between the present and the past tense. I have co-taught this course for the past 5 years with a colleague who just retired this year, so I'll be on my own starting next year. But I will describe this course. I will then show you my slides, which are not really linked in particular to the text of what I'm saying here, and then throw out just a handful of lessons that the two of us have learned from doing this. And here we are. So that was up. Oh, this is Jane. Oops, no, that was Jane. Okay, maybe I'll stay here for a minute. So, Living Writers, it's a course. Colgate likes to use the word signature to describe this course in this program. I think it probably was one of the first in the country of its kind. It is a sort of three-way conversation between writers and scholars and students about how works of literature come to be. Fred Bush, the well-known novelist, began teaching the course in the early 1980s. He taught it for about 20 years. It was a 50-student course that met twice weekly, and they ran through about 10 books in the course of a semester. The students were reading roughly a book a week. They came to class on Tuesdays and talked about the book with Professor Bush, and on Thursday afternoons, the writer was present in class to answer their prepared questions, and then the writer gave a public reading. Fred retired in the early 2000s, and died in the mid-2000s. Jane and I revived the course together in 2009. I'm a creative writer. Jane is a literary scholar, a modernist, a Virginia Woolf and E.M. Forster scholar, mainly. We taught it once, the 50-student model that Fred Bush had developed, and we had a great time doing it. We had great success with the students, we thought, anyway. In 2010, the president of the university came to us and asked us if we could imagine taking aspects of the course online. His goals were, he had several goals. One was to increase alumni and parent engagement, the sort of lifelong learning notion, allow people keep developing after college. Also, certainly donor relations development was in his head. We have not actually directly been involved with that. He wanted to expand the reach of an already pretty expensive course, and he was interested in, in putting Colgate on the map, having it, be doing cutting edge things technology-wise. So for the first 3 years, we taught something we called Living Writers Online. It ran synchronously with our on-campus course. We live streamed our readings and had a live chat function for people who were watching them by live stream. We had a WordPress blog. On Wednesday evenings in a studio, we had call-in, write-in question sessions. Sometimes the writer was present for those. Sometimes it was just me and Jane. We experimented with some in-person meetings, a New York City kickoff, Families Weekend event on campus, a big Colgate Reads initiative in 2013 that got about 2,100 readers for George Saunders's short story, The 10th of December. But it was very much a sort of online accompaniment for what was happening on campus. We had, in those first few years, between 60 and 200 participants. The number did not go up steadily. There was some oddity to that, but it's probably not all that interesting to anybody but me. In 2014, the president came back to us and essentially asked us to go from opening a window on our classroom, which is what it felt like we'd been doing, to throwing open the doors. He wanted us to teach a MOOC. Colgate had signed an agreement with edX to offer a handful of MOOCs over a couple of years, and he wanted us to be first, since we were the only ones doing this online course. We actually ended up using, for reasons I can explain, if you're interested, the edX Edge platform, not the MOOC platform. So I technically have not taught a MOOC. We did everything that we'd been doing before, but we added a few more things. We integrated the course more with what was happening in the classroom. We added some Friday morning couch sessions to talk about the events. The writer who'd just been on campus, what were the highlights of Jonathan Franzen's visit with students. We made these videos with students, but they were live streamed for the online participants. We had students posting to the course discussion forum. We started using the Lit Genius app for annotation. And in the past, we had only highlighted 4 of the 10 writers on Living Writers Online, and we provided in this last year more support for the other writers. In 2014, we attracted 800 people, again, parents, alumni, members of the Hamilton community. So that's the course. So there's me and Jane, my beloved Jane, who is at Bowdoin at this moment for the inauguration of their new president. She's on that board of trustees. The main thing you're going to realize when I show you this slideshow is that our secret weapon is a graphic designer. This is a bookmark that we made to help promote the 10th of December back in 2013, trying to get 2013 readers for this one story. Here's a snippet from the conversation. I'm trying to remember whether this is. I think this is a Wednesday evening book discussion with George Saunders in the studio. And one of the reasons I took this screenshot is just to point out that this is constant for us. I was asking Memory about this at lunch, but people are talking about the story and they're asking George Saunders to talk about the hidden message between particular short stories, and then there's always somebody saying, "Oh, I can't get the technology to work. Can you?" So you get this technology static along with the sort of content questions. I just fan mail. Put a few of these in here. This is the discussion that went along with the Zadie Smith live stream. Here's a studio conversation about Kay Ryan's poetry with a colleague from Syracuse University, Jules Gibbs, a Wednesday evening book discussion session. More fan mail. The postcard that we produced to advertise Living Writers on ColgateX. This is an interesting image. It has more depth than it might look like at one glance. It's from the New York City kickoff for the Living Writers on ColgateX, which was a jam-packed event with maybe 100 alumni and parents in a ballroom in New York City where we introduced the technology, and the technology actually failed that evening, as it often does. But sitting in the back of the room was a row of young women who were recent graduates of the Living Writers course on campus. I'm thinking about your theme of community brought me to this. That one of the beauties of this course, of course, is that it's new in every year. It's 10 books, 10 fresh books. We've never repeated an author in all the years that we've done it. So you can take the class on campus, and then you can graduate, and you can continue taking it online. And that's a group of recent graduates who were taking it online. More promotional materials from our fabulous graphic designer. That's a technology failure moment. I kind of like it. Jane and I are standing there like we're teaching, but we couldn't get this to work. But that's in New York City. These are posters that our graphic designer made for us to hang around town to try to encourage community members to join. This may be an issue here in Hanover as it is in Hamilton, New York, a kind of town gown separation, a sense that what happens on campus is not available to people in the community. So we recruited hard, and these posters were one of our methods. Nadifa Muhammad, we interviewed on a Wednesday evening in the Colgate bookstore the night before her reading. There's a transcript of the discussion forum that was happening at the same time. More promotional materials. Oh, I just put this in at the last minute. Does anybody know who this is? Yeah? Marlon James, he just won the Booker Award for, the Booker Prize for The Brief History of 7 Killings. He was on campus last fall. More promotional materials. Me and Jane in a Wednesday evening book discussion screenshot. Here's a screenshot from the Lit Genius annotation app. I was saying to somebody at lunch, actually, this is one of the things that I might try again, but I would do differently. It wasn't entirely clear to the sort of alumni, not even sort of, to the alumni parent audience what an annotation app might do that would be different from what discussion forum does. So a lot of what they did there looks like commentary on the text as opposed to true annotations. But they had fun with it, and it's a very cool app. Jonathan Franzen, more. 2 images. So this is sometimes writers come and give a talk, sometimes they give a reading, sometimes we do a staged interview. This was a staged interview, as you can see, with Marjan Satrapi. That's what it would have looked like if you were in the room with us, and this is what it looked like if you were logging in to watch it via live stream, as the Living Writers on ColgateX participants did. And there's a transcript of the conversation. I think that was happening at the same time as that staged interview. Another surprise of doing this, of running these live stream events with a chat function, is that it's sort of like a coffee klatch that's happening at the same time online as the event, and people will start talking to each other before the event starts. The person who's running this, who's got the laptop and is facilitating the conversation, will say, "Well, who's here?" And people will say, "I'm Ellie Baker from the class of '76," and somebody else will say, "Oh, I'm class of '77." And an hour later, they'll still be talking about Colgate. And you think, did they watch the reading at all? I don't know. Zone of interest. This is a moment from an on-campus event with Kate Boo over Families Weekend a couple of years ago. So parents and alumni in the room. So participants in the online program who actually came to campus. There was a dinner in Kate's honor the night before. And then this morning breakfast conversation in the English department lounge with great art. Me and Jane talking with our colleague, Peter Balakian, about Holocaust literature right before Martin Amos's visit. This is a Friday morning couch session with students to talk about the event that had just ended. One more longer piece of fan mail, all very self-congratulatory. Apologies for that. So, lessons, and I'll be very brief, maybe just 5 minutes to sketch out maybe some of the worries that we had when we started and some of the solutions that we found and some of the solutions we're still working on. We were skeptics. We were both skeptics at best, technophobes at worst. I'm a technophobe. Jane, my colleague who's been teaching at Colgate since the 1970s, uses technology much more and better than I do. I was skeptical, I think, of the concept of a MOOC as a content delivery system. I just don't think of myself as delivering content. I think of myself as modeling the messy and exciting and fraught, engrossing experience of encountering on the page someone else's mind. That's process, of course, rather than product. I also believe in the sort of so-called sacred space of a classroom, a place where a particular professor encounters a group of particular students at a particular moment in time, and absolutely anything can happen. MOOCs seem too much to me like formal theater, as opposed to sort of extemporaneous, not improv. MOOCs are not. I mean, the classroom teaching is not improv, of course, but it's closer to extemporaneous theater. And I think here of the now famous statement by the edX CEO that really good actors can actually be really good teachers. That's sort of scary. We felt anxious about the vulnerability of teaching in the open, of teaching to a much larger audience, of teaching to an audience we didn't fully understand, people who were invisible to us most of the time. We felt pretty vulnerable about what our colleagues would think. We are the first ones here. What happens behind the closed doors of your classroom is, pretty much your business, especially after tenure, when nobody comes in to mentor you anymore. So we were throwing open the doors of our classroom, and our colleagues would be able to watch us too. Time, we already, because of this course that involves teaching 10 books, 10 authors every fall, we were already reading like crazy. Over every summer, and with the addition of the MOOC requirement, we were also now making videos like crazy and doing interviews like crazy over the summer. We had to, there's just this race to bank as much material as you possibly can before you start, although we were still making videos once the semester began. We have enough resources. The resources actually haven't been a problem for us, but we didn't really understand how to use them. We didn't understand how to allocate them. We didn't understand what to ask for. To a great degree, the president tapped us on the shoulder and said, I want you to do this, but we didn't know how to do it. And there was no infrastructure. There were no designers. There were no educational technologists. There were IT people who understood programming and computers. And there were alumni relations people who understood, how to reach the alumni network, and there were people in the communications office who understood how to market something, but nobody really knew how to build this thing and run it. And so we just didn't know what to ask for. What else? I think I said a little bit about this already. We were worried about the complexity of dealing with a multivalent audience, students in the room, students online, participants in person, on the phone, online, sometimes on, people talking to us on the phone and people chatting at the same time. We were anxious, and it was an anxiety that was realized pretty quickly about people going off the rails in discussion forum. We were worried about the people we'd never hear from at all, and there were plenty of people we never heard from at all. In a classroom, you can figure out what to do with the back of the class students. You can try to bring them in. You can guide a student, protect a student from revealing too much or saying something really stupid by catching them early, but you can't do that so much online. Quickly, solutions in response to our anxiety about time. We really were forced to plan ahead. Neither of us are planners, and we had to do it, and that was probably good for us. Painful, but good. In response to this feeling of vulnerability, we formed a lot of partnerships. We formed partnerships, really strong partnerships with IT, with alumni affairs, with communications, but also with people in our own department and with people in other departments. We made a lot of videos with people in film and media studies, in writing and rhetoric, in political science, in the history department. The history department said there's an African historian who made 30 minutes of videos with us talking about the Ethiopian Civil War as a backdrop for Nadifa Mohammed's wonderful novel, The Orchard of Lost Souls. We still struggle with the resource question. We still don't quite know what to do. We have assistants, we have a graphic designer. I think we need instructional designers. I've decided that based on my conversations this morning. We have, in response to our anxiety about all those voices in the room, we've tried to harness them creatively. We've tried to get the students in the classroom and the participants online talking to each other. It hasn't always worked, but some things have really worked spectacularly. I talked at lunch for just a moment about the sense of the adjacent possible. Because we needed to make more videos, because we needed to offer more for participants online, we developed these Friday morning couch sessions. Well, in the past, we'd really hewed to a Tuesday-Thursday schedule. Talk about the book Tuesday. Thursday, the writer comes. Jonathan Franzen comes. Jonathan Franzen reads from Purity, reads a really shocking sex scene from Purity. There's an event afterward at which everybody fawns over Jonathan Franzen, who's actually really very likable in person. And then he goes away, and we don't see our students again until Tuesday when we're talking about Martin Amos's new novel, The Zone of Interest. These Friday morning sessions that we developed for the alumni parent audience, where we asked the students to talk about what was the most memorable thing about the writer's visit, were a fabulous hit for us. There was, for us, a kind of boomerang effect to doing this work, that working in the open revitalized our classroom teaching, forced us to break out of our mold of one of us lecturing and the other one asking questions. We used to trade off taking the lead on text. It was very formulaic and kind of dull. Also, I should say, teaching online forced us to form a stronger partnership with each other. We liked each other, but we didn't see each other much outside of class. And there was a little bit, there's always, I think always in co-teaching, a little bit of a sense of competition, who gets the most airtime. But teaching online, teaching in the open forced us never to sabotage each other, to be very supportive, and also never to wear our black wrap dresses on the same day. So all of this has led me to a sense of what living writers on ColgateX might look like in 2016, when I will be going it alone without Jane. So thank you very much.